Hey church, welcome to Life Group. I hope this is a great night as you gather with your brothers and sisters to talk about ways to encourage one another, and you press in a little bit on the sermon from this morning concerning conversions. So your Life Group leader has some questions to talk about. One of the questions concerns how the conversions of Lydia and the slave girl and the Philippian jailer reflect or how they're reflected in our culture. So what I'm really thinking about on that particular question is the people that we meet, the people that we see on our campuses and our neighborhoods and in the workplaces. How do we see that reflected through the lives of these three individuals? So maybe there's a person in your world that's very religious and very much desiring to know God, but they've not yet come to faith. Or maybe someone like the slave girl. The unnamed slave girl is just really, really far from God. And we see that. We see it reflected in our society today. Sometimes we see it in theater, or we hear it in music, or particularly in our own relationships with people that we know. And then when I think of the Philippian jailer, knowing that a jailer would be an ex-army man in that day, probably hardened, probably calloused and indifferent to the gospel. Maybe there are people like that you know as well. So hope you enjoy this time with each other tonight as you share, as you pray for one another and seek to encourage one another. You may also want to take some time this evening to share the story of your conversion. I think that could be very encouraging if you shared individually, a couple at least, when you most look to is the time that you were converted. And then the last thing I would say, and I didn't make a question about this in the Talk It Over or write a question, but I think it can be helpful for some who have a clear, definite conversion moment. You know exactly when that is. It's a date written in your Bible. That's your story. You were converted as an adult. But others of you don't have that similar testimony. You don't have a clear date for your conversion, but you know there was a time that the Lord became real to you, that He opened your heart. So you might reflect on that and spend some time talking about what those differences look like. Hope the Lord is with you tonight. I know He will be as you meet together. God bless.